Hi, my name is Nicole Lamb, and I'm the founder of Love Through Music. Welcome to another episode of the Dear Music Lovers video and podcast series. As you can see, today we have the same special guest, Mr. Alan Mountner. He is the conductor and the orchestra director at the Los Angeles County High School for the Arts. So today we're going to be talking a little bit about how the pandemic has affected how he teaches an orchestra, because when we think about when you're in midst of a pandemic, how do you get 30, 40, 50 musicians to play together on, let's say, different platforms like Zoom? So let's see what Mr. Montner has to say about this topic.
Oh, there's lots to say, but first of all, thank you, Nicole, for having me here. Yes, this the pandemic has really changed the way that we teach orchestras, or that we teach just regular classes through the Zoom platform primarily and through Google Classroom. When the pandemic started back in March, all of us instructors, teachers, music educators were thrown into this virtual world. And many of us who've been teaching for so many years, this was a whole new thing for us. And we just really had to scamper and figure out how we can do this. We spent time talking with each other, music educators to music educators, throughout the months. And it really turns out that nobody has one great way. But I think each one of us have had to adapt our teaching style based on what our school and what our students' needs turn out to be. So if you are teaching elementary school music, you're going to have to teach on a different platform. If you're teaching middle school band, you'll have to do a different approach. With the County High School for the Arts, and these are students who are actively taking private lessons and they're studying their instruments. I have found turning a performing orchestra class into something that is more orchestra studies related. Since we don't have the ability to actually perform simultaneously in real time, although I understand that there are works and platforms that are trying to solve that problem, we've had to come up with other ways to try to make the experience as meaningful as possible. So in the arts high school, I've incorporated the students learning orchestral excerpts, same that they would need to if they were auditioning for orchestras or auditioning for schools. Some schools are requiring some type of orchestral excerpt these days. So I've been doing regular studies with that. I've also incorporated a lot of listening to the students, giving them a prompt every couple weeks and trying to get them to listen to music outside the box, outside of what they might be typically listening to. There's a lot more than Beethoven and Brahms and Tchaikovsky. They're great composers, but there is so much more. And I'm really happy that the students are taking to that kind of thing. They're listening to more contemporary composers. They're listening to composers that may be a little bit more aleatoric, a little bit more avant-garde than we would typically do at LOXA. But if the students get anything out of this, I think they're learning how to record themselves, which is, I think, in the post-pandemic world is going to be a very important thing. Their ability, I mean, everything from getting the right equipment, the right microphones. They might have to upgrade their computer equipment, and almost set up an in-home studio so that they can record. I have so many friends who are now doing recordings remotely that way. So people will say, here's a track, I need you to record the cello part, and they just do it from home on their own laptop and they send it in. So I believe we're seeing the beginnings of a kind of a new age in music production, but also I think the students are getting a real good taste of what their futures may look like. And it's not necessarily bleak or horrible. It's just going to be very different from what we're used to.
Yeah, I totally understand that. I love what you said about how now and when we're in a pandemic, when we're online, you're implementing a lot of different activities like the listening assignments and the recordings of the excerpts that you probably wouldn't necessarily do when you were in person. But many of these things are skill sets that you, as a student, should develop. and will always be useful in the future. So I love how, and I applaud all, and I respect so many of the teachers, music teachers especially right now, that are using these resources to create new activities that are beneficial to all of your students. That is
And if I can, and just to add to what you were just saying is, I you're right. These were some things that if I had thought of way ahead of time, I should be doing. I probably should have insisted on outside listening and excerpt. And so I know a number of these things that I'm doing now on Google Classroom and uh, other things that we would normally be doing. I know that I will probably be carrying it over once the pandemic is over and once we're safely able to come back to live, in-person rehearsals, which I still miss. You cannot replace a live ensemble. The collaboration of all the students playing together and listening to each other, there just is no replacement for that. But I do applaud the students that I have, really at all the organizations I work with. For the most part, they're all very involved. They're keeping up with things, and they I guess they're taking to it. They're realizing what we have, and I don't really have anybody who is just wants out. They all want to be a part of the process. So I'm happy for that.
You took the words out of my mouth. I was going to say that I think so many of the things that you're doing now, like the Google Classroom and the recordings, will probably implement even after the pandemic. Well, I want to thank you for your time, Mr. Bonner. This has been absolutely incredible, and I hope to do another interview with you very soon. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Dear Music Lovers video and podcast series. We hope to see you next time.